All right, welcome back to the show. Thank you for tuning in here today. One of the things I always pride myself on is being a consumer activist. We used to say consumer advocate. Activist means we really want to educate, empower, and actually engage you to do something about it. If you have any questions, anything on that financial wheel, ranging from real estate to finance to mortgage to credit, go to AmericanDreamElite.com. That contact form comes directly to me. One of the inquiries we seem to get from time to time has to do with divorce. Over 50% of marriages end in divorce. So this is truly something we have to educate you on and empower you with. Here joining us is our good friend Ilona Antonyan with the law offices of Ilona Antonyan. Good to have you here. It's been a little while. You just got back from a little trip. So there was a divorce recently between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. Is that right?
Right. They're still in a divorce process, but the main issue with younger couples is custody of their children. And based on the reports on the internet, they have an amicable divorce and they're going to share the custody despite allegations made against Ben, actually, such as gambling and drinking and all these other things that people usually bring up.
So when you talk about something as a contested divorce versus an amicable divorce, how do you approach this?
Well, when it comes to custody and visitation, most of the time it's contested. I rarely see uncontested custody and visitation matters because when it comes to money, usually people start manipulating, exchanging the time with the children for more money until they end up in court, and then the judge makes an order, and then things calm down because they have to follow those orders, whether it's a set amount of money they have to pay or receive, or a set schedule they have to follow. In terms of contested issues, there are many things that we can contest it, from property disputes to division of assets, existence of assets. And the way to discover that information would be to issue subpoenas. If it's concerning assets, we issue subpoenas to different financial institutions, such as banks, investment accounts that they may have. We take depositions. That's when we bring a person to our office with a court reporter and have them produce certain documents and question them about the entries and transfers on the bank statements or financial reports they will receive to verify whether they're telling the truth or not, and whether certain things exist, whether it's other accounts. An important policy in the state of California is duty of disclosure between spouses, especially in a divorce proceeding. So until your divorce is finalized, you have to produce all records upon demand to your spouse. And if you open up, let's say, an account and fail to disclose it, although it's after separation, or you kept it in your name alone during the marriage but failed to disclose it on the paperwork that must be exchanged before your divorce is finalized, you could be subject to significant financial sanctions when it comes to the time of trial. So
do you find that most of the divorces that you're working with in here in San Diego, are most of them, are they ugly? Are they contested? Or it seems to me that when you have something built up, I mean, I just heard you mention children, money, real estate. I know a lot of those things can be emotional, but if you're trying to move on to that next chapter, I think the goal would be to be amicable, but probably easier said than done.
When it's amicable, it costs less. The more people fight, obviously, it costs more because attorneys have to spend more time working up the case. What do we see more? Usually people come to us when it is contested.
Yeah.
When it's not contested, it's pretty simple and cheap. They can use a paralegal, or they can use one of the younger associates to draft up the paperwork. However, when it's time to fight in court, they need someone who knows what they're doing.
Well, you'd mentioned, we used the Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner as an example, but there's a stat we actually talked about on our radio show earlier this week about baby boomers divorcing. So my parents have been married for 40 years. They still live in the house I was raised in, right? So I couldn't even imagine going through that. But if you look at baby boomers, I mean, I have the numbers here. In 2010 versus 95 versus 1980 versus 1970, the number of divorces have actually skyrocketed. And earlier I said over 50% of divorces, marriages end in divorces. Second marriages are like 70%. So we have somewhat of an epidemic. Last week we talked with Greg Garrison, another attorney, about gay marriage. It's like, I don't even know why they want to get married, to be honest with you, when it ends in this much failure. But speak to the statistics of San Diego and some of the things happening here locally.
Well, I do see more divorces with people who are in their 50s. I even have a few that are much older, like in their 70s, 80s. The issues that that
Getting
are
divorced in their 70s or 80s?
Yes, it happens. You know,
I mean,
people change as they get older, right? So, and they can't stand each other. And a lot of times baby boomers get divorced because they grow apart, just like any couple, right?
Right.
Like if you get married in your 20s, and you're a completely different person by the time you're in your 50s, and the children are
80s,
grown
yep.
up, and they moved out of the house, and they're just not a good match anymore. But what I see in those cases mostly are women who need spousal support, or husbands who accumulated retirement benefits, pension benefits through work, while wives have been at home committed to raising their children. And now they're getting divorced, and they need to divide their pension, retirement plans, and get spousal support. And then what they're faced with is also retirement age 65. Some baby boomers may choose to retire at age 65, and some may choose to work. Those that choose to work, if they have their own business or otherwise, will still be under an obligation, if their spouse makes relatively less, to pay spousal support beyond their retirement age. However, if they choose to retire, the court cannot force someone to work who chose to retire at age 65. So both spouses would then be living off whatever assets they have accumulated. They will be divided equally, and one spouse who worked less can qualify for derivative benefits through the Social Security Administration.
Well, there's nothing I would like to see more than successful marriages in the city of San Diego. But if you are going through something like this, obviously Ilona is a wealth of knowledge. She's a certified family law specialist. Reach out to her. You can connect with her online if you have any questions at all about anything like this. You know, it's a sensitive subject, but I appreciate you coming in here, and we certainly talk a lot about real estate and that being involved. And so I want to switch gears and get into that market right now. Earlier this week, we were with Mary Maloney up in North County. She is a top producer with Hometown Realty. She is the definition of work hard, play hard. Let's take a look at what Mary Maloney had to say about her marketplace this week.